Thunder rattled the old house, rain lashed against the windows, a storm raged outside, mirroring the turmoil brewing inside me. I stood before the Blackwood Manor. Its silhouette was a jagged edge against the stormy sky. The wind howled through the trees, sounding like tortured screams. I pulled my coat tighter. A shiver ran down my spine, a tremor of anticipation, not fear. Blackwood Manor, a place whispered about in hushed tones, a place of local legends and chilling tales, tales of tragedy, of betrayal, of restless spirits. I had heard them all. Now I was here to see for myself, to touch the legend, to taste the fear, to confront the darkness that clung to this place like a shroud. The storm intensified. A bolt of lightning split the sky, momentarily illuminating the manor in a ghostly glow. It revealed the decay, the neglect. The house seemed to be holding its breath, bracing itself against the onslaught of the storm, just like me. I took a step closer, drawn to its menacing beauty, to the secrets it held. Rain soaked through my shoes. The wind whipped my hair across my face, but I didn't care. I was home. "Don't do it, boy." The old woman's voice was a raspy whisper. Her eyes, though, were sharp, full of warning. "That place is cursed. It's best left undisturbed." I had met Mrs. Hathaway earlier that day at the local diner, an unsettling encounter. She had been watching me, her gaze intense, unnerving. "Just curious, ma'am," I replied, trying to sound casual, but her words, spoken with such conviction, had struck a chord within me. They fueled my curiosity, added an edge of apprehension to my excitement. "There are stories, you see, stories that have been passed down for generations." Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "They say that the Blackwood family—" She leaned closer, her breath hot on my ear. "Met a grim end within those walls, and their souls they never left." I tried to dismiss her words as the ramblings of an old woman, but her intensity, the fear in her eyes, stayed with me. They clung to me like the dampness in the air. I had heard the stories, the whispers of tragedy. The Blackwoods, once a prominent family, wiped out in a single night. A fire, they said. But whispers hinted at something darker, something more sinister, something that haunted the old house still. "Stay away from Blackwood Manor," Mrs. Hathaway had warned, her voice firm. "It's not safe, especially not tonight." But her words had the opposite effect. They were a challenge, a dare, and I've never been one to back down from a dare. My friends thought I was crazy. Standing here on the verge of entering Blackwood Manor in the middle of a raging storm, I almost agreed with them. "You're seriously going in there?" Mark's voice was tight with apprehension. He stood a safe distance away, his face pale in the flickering light of a street lamp. "It's not safe, man. And in this weather, relax," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "It's just an old house. A little rain never hurt anyone." But even as I spoke, Mrs. Hathaway's warnings echoed in my ears. The old house seemed to pulsate with an energy I couldn't define. It was as if the storm had awakened something within its walls, something ancient, something hungry. "Besides," I added, trying to lighten the mood, "think of the story I'll have to tell." Mark just shook his head, his face a mask of disbelief. "You're crazy, you know that, right?" He stepped back further, as if the house itself posed a threat. "I'm out of here. Call me when you're back among the sane." I watched him go, his retreating figure swallowed by the storm. A part of me envied him, his rational fear, his common sense. But another part, the part that thrived on the thrill of the unknown, urged me forward. "See you on the other side, Mark," I muttered to myself. Then, with a deep breath and a quickening pulse, I turned towards the house. The dare had been issued, and I was about to accept. The front door groaned like a dying man as I pushed it open. The sound echoed through the house, a mournful wail that sent shivers down my spine. The air inside was heavy, thick with the smell of dampness and decay. It clung to my skin like a shroud, suffocating, oppressive. I stepped inside, my footsteps echoing on the marble floor, each step a drumbeat in the silence. The storm outside seemed to intensify, the wind howling its fury. Rain lashed against the boarded-up windows, a relentless assault on the old house's frail defenses. But inside there was an eerie stillness, a sense of waiting, as if the house itself was holding its breath, watching me. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. The air was thick with dust, catching in my throat, making me cough. Through the gloom, I could make out the remnants of past grandeur, a sweeping staircase now shrouded in cobwebs, a crystal chandelier, its once sparkling facets now dull with age and neglect. My hand trembled slightly as I reached out to touch the cold, smooth surface of a nearby table. A thin layer of dust coated my fingers, a tangible reminder of the passage of time. The house had stood for over a century, witnessing generations come and go, witnessing joys and sorrows, life and death. And now, it was witnessing me. The house creaked and groaned around me, a symphony of settling wood and wind whistling through unseen cracks. I ventured further into the mansion, each step taking me deeper into its clutches. Shadows danced in the flickering light from my flashlight, taking on sinister shapes that sent shivers down my spine. The silence was broken only by the pounding of my own heart. The air grew colder as I moved deeper into the house, a chilling presence that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. I could almost hear the echoes of the past swirling around me, the laughter of children, the murmur of conversation, the clinking of glasses, all gone, replaced by an oppressive silence that spoke volumes. I paused in a darkened hallway drawn by an ornate door slightly ajar. A faint, musty odor wafted from within, the scent of old books and forgotten memories. I pushed the door open slowly, wincing as it creaked in protest, and stepped inside. The room was a library, its shelves lined with leather-bound volumes. A fire had burned in the hearth long ago, leaving behind a pile of ashes and a lingering scent of wood smoke. A single window, its glass cracked and grimy, offered a glimpse of the raging storm outside. The room felt strangely intimate, as if the Blackwood family had just stepped out, leaving behind traces of their presence. A heavy book lay open on a table in the center of the room, its pages yellowed with age. I approached it cautiously, drawn by an invisible force. The book seemed to pulsate with an unnatural energy, a silent beacon in the stillness. Dust motes danced in the beam of my flashlight as I leaned closer, my heart pounding in my chest. The book was a diary, its pages filled with elegant script, the ink faded but still legible. I traced the words with my finger, feeling a strange connection to the person who had penned them. The storm rages outside, the diary entry began, mirroring the turmoil within these walls. My family. They are changing. Their laughter rings hollow, their eyes hold secrets. Something dark has settled upon Blackwood Manor, a shadow that stretches long and cold. Each word sent a fresh wave of chills down my spine. The diary's author, a woman named Elizabeth Blackwood, wrote of strange occurrences, of whispers and shadows, of a growing sense of dread that permeated the household. Her words painted a vivid picture of a family teetering on the brink of madness, consumed by an unseen force. I turned the brittle pages carefully, each rustle sounding deafening in the silence of the library. Elizabeth's entries grew increasingly frantic, her words filled with fear and desperation. She described nightmares, waking visions, a presence that haunted her every move. He walks among us, she wrote in a shaky hand, a specter of malice and despair. I see the darkness in his eyes, feel the chill of his touch. He is coming for us all. A sudden crash from upstairs shattered the silence. I jumped, dropping Elizabeth's diary onto the dusty floor. My heart pounded against my ribs. The storm outside roared, rain lashing against the windows. For a moment I froze, every sense on high alert. The air hung heavy, thick with anticipation. The house creaked and groaned around me, but the crash, sharp and metallic, had come from inside. Slowly I picked up the diary, tucking it carefully into my satchel. Elizabeth Blackwood had spoken of strange occurrences. Could this be one of them? Or was there a more rational explanation? Despite my skepticism, a tremor of fear ran down my spine. The crash had felt deliberate, an unwelcome invitation to explore further, a test of my courage. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the flashlight. Curiosity gnawed at me. With a deep breath, I pushed myself away from the table. The library now felt oppressive, a cage of forgotten memories. The crash had shattered the illusion of peace. Section 2. The Whispering. Step by cautious step, I ascended the grand staircase, each creak of the aged wood sounding unnaturally loud in the stillness. The air grew colder as I climbed, the scent of dampness intensifying, tinged with a metallic tang that sent a shiver down my spine. The storm raged outside, a symphony of wind and rain, but inside, an unnatural silence reigned, broken only by the sound of my own breathing. And then I heard it. A whisper, faint and indistinct, carried on the edge of the wind. The whisper came again, closer this time, a breath of sound that brushed against my ear. "Turn back," it hissed, the voice raspy and cold like the scrape of bone on stone. "Leave this place." I swung the flashlight beam around, searching for the source of the whisper, but the hallway remained empty, the shadows shifting and dancing in the flickering light. Section 3. The Shadow. I took a tentative step forward, my shadow stretching out before me, a distorted reflection of myself. The whispering intensified, swirling around me like a vortex of sound. "Get out," it hissed, the voice laced with urgency. But I was frozen, caught in a strange paralysis of fear. A shadow, darker than the surrounding darkness, moved in front of the window. It was a fleeting glimpse, but it was enough to send a jolt of pure terror through my veins. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the shadow was gone. The hallway, once filled with whispering voices, was now eerily silent. I stood there, my heart pounding, the image of the shadow seared into my mind. Section 1. The Nursery. I stumbled inside, slamming the door shut behind me. The beam flickered to life, revealing a child's nursery. A child's name, scrawled in a childish hand, stared back at me. Emily. Drawn by an invisible force, I approached a small table. A single toy, a porcelain doll, lay on its surface. The doll's eyes, two blue orbs, seemed to follow my every move. I had to get out of there. The feeling of unease lingered. I was no longer alone in the nursery. A low growl, guttural and menacing, emanated from the shadows. Terror seized me. My hand closed around the cold metal doorknob. It was jammed. Finally, the door gave way and I ran. I ran until my lungs burned. Stumbling into a darkened room, I slammed the door shut. My flashlight beam danced across the walls, coming to rest on an ornate mirror. A faint glow emanated from behind the mirror. Curiosity battled with raw terror. The light behind the mirror beckoned. The mirror rippled, revealing a swirling vortex of light and shadow. The room was now bathed in a soft, ethereal light. The soft light pulsed with a life of its own. The mirror yielded, revealing a hidden passage. The scent of lavender and chamomile filled the air. I stepped through the mirror into the darkness. The passage opened into a small circular chamber. There, seated on the floor, was a young girl. It was Emily. The growl echoed in my mind, a plea. Emily's eyes fluttered open. "You've come," she whispered. "You have a choice," she said. "You only have 15 minutes.